Welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. Let's start with what's making news. 212 Indians stranded in war-torn Israel returned to India on a special charter flight with Union IT Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar receiving them. There are about 18,000 Indians in Israel, many of them IT professionals and students. Our big focus on the show is the human shields that Hamas may use. As many as 150 citizens, including civilians and soldiers, are in Hamas custody. Meanwhile, the United Nations says Israel has asked 1.1 million Palestinians in northern Gaza to move southwards within 24 hours as it threatens an all-out attack. Brazil, which holds the rotating presidency of the UN Security Council, has called a meeting to discuss the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. New Delhi walks a policy tightrope as India has slammed the Hamas attack but reiterated its stand on backing direct negotiations for establishing a sovereign state of Palestine. Our big focus on the show is the hostage crisis that Israel faces in Gaza. We have a special guest, Maj General V.K. Datta, who was trained in Israel with the Sayeret Matkal. I'm going to ask General Datta about the complexity of rescuing hostages in urban, built-up areas controlled by terrorists. General Datta, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sandeep. If you talk about a hostage rescue operation to a special forces operative, it is one of the most difficult operations which is given in the lap of a special force. And especially so when the location of the hostage is not known, are they all together, what is the type of building in which they have been kept, how many entries and doors are there to that target area, are there any blind angles from where a surprise can be achieved, and how many terrorists are guarding those hostages. So in a war situation where an organization like Hamas has taken a mass hostage across into the Gaza Strip, and where have they kept them, how many people are guarding them, are they overground or are they underground, are they distributed in various places. Now for a special force to launch a rescue operation is a nightmare. Firstly, who's going to tell me where are they? How will I come to know what is the target and its layout? How many entries and escape points are there? How many terrorists are guarding them? Have they been wired for an explosion to go when a rescue operation
Booby-trapped, you mean the hostages could be booby-trapped?
No, the building or
the building could be booby-trapped. That's right, yeah.
That if somebody makes an attempt, they will also get killed and the hostages will also die.
Right.
So it is a nightmare situation.
It's a nightmare. Is it far worse than an urban combat situation of military entering, a built-up area and fighting?
Where there are no hostages involved, fighting in a built-up area, you got a clear choice or demolishing that target totally.
Right.
Why should I sacrifice my men trying to clear a building when there is no hostage and there are only terrorists? So we follow that concept. If there is only a terrorist or number of terrorists, we will destroy that target.
Right.
I will not sacrifice my men trying to get into a building unnecessarily and exposing my troops to a mortal casualty or injury.
But here you have a very unique situation of Hamas actually having gone in and captured hostages and taking them as human shields. Do you think that was the plan all along, that when they launched this horrible assault on the 7th of October, they did plan to take 150 civilian hostages to take as human shields?
Absolutely. See, when you go into the details of the way this operation was carried out, they had come with a clear mandate. Capture as many, kill as many, to send a message to the Jewish nation that this is what we are going to do to you for what you've done to us. Now there is a difference between a military operation, a legal action being taken against people who are trying to create a law and order situation, versus a terrorist attack where you are slaughtering, butchering people, shooting at random anybody which moves, and taking hostages, women, children and elderly. So there is a vast difference. When you compare at an international level, the humanity, the issues related to the UN Charter, it is a crime against humanity. It is like a genocide.
Right, and in fact, I just want to show you this video of Hamas in training, and where it's very clear that they specifically train to capture hostages. We'll just show you that video of a Hamas facility which they created in Gaza, where they're training to capture hostages. And that's very important, because that tells you that they went in with this kind of training, how to capture civilians and soldiers and hold them hostage. We'll be back.
بنزل منها مشاية بدي طرق عدوية بعرفش يلا هنقلب بالاستراحة بالليل يلا نشوفك حبيبنا ايوه حبيبي الله يحميك شايفه بنزل منها مشاية بدي طرق عدوية بعرفش
Now that very clearly tells you the kind of training that they received was to go and capture hostages, use them as human shields. General Datta, tell us about the Israeli force that is likely to go in for this hostage rescue.
See, the thing is that in Israel and various other countries in the world, including India, we have special forces which are absolutely trained, mandated and equipped to carry out counter-terrorist operations, hostage rescue operations, counter-hijack operations, and any such operation either behind enemy lines or within the country. So we have got different kind of forces, and in fact, if you know that right in the beginning in early 80s, we had a unit known as a special group, which was a multi-purpose role like the Shariat Medical.
Right.
Now, Shariat Medical per se is the General Staff Reconnaissance Unit.
And you trained with Shariat Matkal?
Yeah, I did. I did a lot of interaction with the Shariat Medical, and I spent a lot of time in their base along with the officers and men, and we shared a lot of our experience with them, and in certain places our experience was maybe more than them. That's quite surprising.
Right.
And in fact, while I was there in Israel, during that interaction, they had a live situation where a bus was hijacked from the West Bank going towards the west, towards Jerusalem.
This was in 1983?
1984.
84.
1984. This was during March, April of 1984.
Right.
And I discussed that with the commanding officer of the Shariat Medical. So he asked me, Major, would you like to come along? Because I was a major then.
Right.
I said, yeah, of course, I'd love to see you in action.
Right.
Then I asked him, how are you going to do it? He told me something. I pointed out certain shortcomings, which is there, no, we do it this way. I said, we do it differently. So actually what I told them went wrong. But luckily all the hostages were rescued, but with a snafu. And the snafu is that when you stop a bus which is carrying hostages,
right,
you have to stop it at the designated place where your commanders are waiting to pounce.
Right.
If the bus goes beyond that place, then your commanders will be running after the bus.
Right.
So we use a technique where the bus must come to a stop. The driver will apply his brakes. Anybody in the bus will fall forward, including the terrorist who's holding a gun. And by the time they recover,
right,
the commanders are on them.
So this actually happened. This
This
unfolded
actually
in
happened.
front of your eyes.
Yeah, I was there.
Right.
Now the thing is that while the bus was attempted to be stopped by explosive, the tires were burst, but because of the momentum of the bus, it didn't stop where it should have stopped. It went further ahead.
Right.
And we had to chase it and then counter it. And as the luck would have it, there were some soldiers in the bus traveling in civils, and when this bus got destabilized, These boys pounced on those terrorists and took them in a bear hug. And by the time, the commandos came and everybody was rescued. But what I'm saying is that anything can go wrong in a hostage situation. Hostage rescue is either a complete success or a complete failure.
So I want to bring in this thing about the complete success that you mentioned. In July 1976, one of the most outstanding hostage rescue situations where an Israeli force, the Sayeret Matkal that you trained with, flew over 4,000 kilometers into Uganda and captured, neutralized the terrorists and rescued almost 100 hostages.
Exactly. See, it is
gold standard of counter-terrorism.
It is a dream operation of a special force.
Right.
Now the only thing is that when you go in for a hostage rescue, you have to achieve surprise.
Right.
If you are able to achieve a surprise at the last moment of 5 to 10 minutes maximum, in fact it should be less than 5 seconds, not minutes, 5 seconds. 5 seconds means that I am the terrorist,
Right.
I am holding you on gunpoint,
Right.
and by the time I look that way, that 3 seconds is gone and I'm shot in the head.
So you have this, that's what you train for,
You
the
have to
lightning
achieve that
reflexes.
surprise. That means you have to reach the target unnoticed. You have to use a blind angle. He may be guarding a door, you will blow the wall and come in. Or you will come in from the roof.
Right.
Or you may use any other technique. So surprise is the main essence of a hostage rescue operation. If the surprise is lost, the terrorist can either start shooting, or he can throw grenades, or if he has wired them up or use explosive, he'll blow it.
Right.
So that means your operation is a failure. If you are not able to rescue all the hostages, it is deemed as a failed operation. You might save, let's say if there were 100, you have saved 50, 50 had died, or whatever figures die, it becomes a failure.
But it's interesting that the Entebbe operation, there were just 3 civilian casualties among the 100-odd passengers that
including the
PLO
commanding
had
officer of the...
But yeah, the only IDF casualty was Colonel Jonathan Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu's older brother.
Yeah.
And they achieved complete surprise, as you said. No one
So how was
expected
the
them to
surprise achieved?
fly 4,000
You are
kilometers.
aware they flew all that distance?
Yeah, and they landed
Ugandans
secretly.
didn't know who was coming, not coming.
Absolutely.
They landed in a blind airfield.
Right.
Without the lights.
Yep.
Fine. They had a duplicate of Idi Amin.
Right.
In the similar car.
Sitting in a Mercedes.
Mercedes. That was a ground support action.
Right.
And they got down, that Mercedes drove ahead. The guards of the Ugandans standing there, they saluted Idi Amin,
Right.
and they all drove in.
Right.
And once they drove in, the guys who were inside guarding the hostages, they didn't anticipate a raid by Israel thousands of kilometers away.
That's right.
In Uganda and TV.
And I think they were on the ground for about 90 minutes.
Yeah.
That's 1.5 hours.
Unfortunately, there was an old lady also who had fallen sick.
Dora Bloch,
She was
who
taken
was
to the hospital.
murdered
and,
by the Ugandan
she was not
security
rescued.
forces. But I mean, Chris, play a picture
Absolute.
perfect operation.
It was a
textbook operation.
Textbook operation.
Now
And, yeah.
coming to Gaza, General Datta, you have Entebbe on the one hand, and now you have Gaza with 150 hostages, possibly scattered all across this very densely populated urban center. Lots of bombed out buildings, tunnels. How is this going to be different from Entebbe? And how is Sayeret Matkal going to attempt this one?
See, I have all my sympathies with Sayeret Matkal. It is a nightmare of an operation. Firstly, to get behind into Hamas, find the target if they've been able to maybe gather some intelligence by satellite communication, interception and all. But the way the Hamas had achieved the surprise on 6th,
On the
they
7th
are not going to
of,
be
7th October,
giving out
yeah.
electronic signals about
Right.
the locations. They have learned their lessons. So it is going to be a very difficult situation for Hamas to pinpoint the target. And then after, even if you come to know that, okay, a group of hostages are here, are they all together? Or have they been dispersed?
Right.
Are they in a building above the ground, or are they in a tunnel below?
Right.
If they're in a tunnel below, and you'll be surprised, the tunneling which has been done over the years in Gaza is amazing. It is a maze of tunnels.
In fact,
It's a maze of tunnels.
Right.
They are reasonably in depth. A normal depth bomb, that is called the bunker buster,
Right.
cannot get down.
right.
In fact, I think yesterday or even today they had struck They had seen some guys coming out of a tunnel. The Israelis struck that target. Only a portion of the tunnel was damaged because they are so deep dug.
Right.
And they say, it has to be confirmed, that this tunneling is going right under. And some people say it is even connecting the West Bank.
Right.
And the Israelis have not been able to locate those routes of the tunnels.
Of the tunnels, right.
Only the time will tell once the Gaza Strip
In
has
fact,
been...
I want to bring in a former IDF officer here who's going to explain to us the complexities of this rescue and the fact that they have captured such a large number of hostages. Let's listen in.
The amount of civilians kidnapped by Hamas and taken captivity now as human shields into Gaza is astounding. We're still trying to get a clear understanding of the numbers. It's at least 100, maybe 150. Many of them are foreign nationals as well, including from Thailand and from Nepal and from Europe, who were here visiting, enjoying a party, enjoying a peace music festival that was taking place in the desert. Children, little babies, are being held in cages now. They were ripped from their families. Elderly people. This is something that we've never had to deal with. It's not exactly clear if this is something new on Hamas's part. I think Hamas was stunned to some extent by the amount of success that they had in breaking through the Israeli barriers and being able to run in a murderous rampage in Israeli communities for a good few hours before Israeli security forces could really figure out what was happening and mobilize. And the few security forces that were on the ground and armed civilians did their best. Unfortunately, most of them were killed, did their best to try to hold back these gunmen. This is part of Hamas's cynical operational strategy. It uses Israeli civilians when it can. It holds its own civilians hostage. The Palestinian civilians of Gaza are hostage to Hamas, who is more than happy to see them die in Israeli retribution airstrikes because it serves their cause of furthering bloodshed and furthering chaos in this region. So I don't know if it's new as far as Hamas's strategy. This is definitely a scope of hostages that we've never seen before, and I think they've never seen before either.
Okay. Is there, US has been, belatedly making noises of sending an aircraft carrier support. Is there a, outside chance, a possibility of US joining the war directly?
On a military level, there's no need for the United States or anybody else to join this war against Hamas. From a military perspective, Hamas is no match for the Israel Defense Forces. I think what the US is doing is a show of support, a show of force, and also a signal to Iran, to Hezbollah, and to others. And I don't know if you can hear the booms over my head. You can hear the Iron Dome batteries intercepting continued Hamas rocket fire on Israeli cities throughout the day, throughout yesterday, and I hear these booms every 30 seconds or so in the neighboring cities and towns to me. The US is showing us a show of support for Israel, and it's a signal to Iran, to Hezbollah and others not to get involved, not to escalate this situation. But from a military perspective, there's not much the US can do. Israel certainly doesn't need and doesn't want American boots on the ground. Militarily, it can absolutely handle this by itself. This is more of a political show of support.
Okay. Thank you, Major, for your time. I just wanted to ask, where are you based in Israel?
And that actually tells you what Israel is actually facing. It's a national crisis, and that's one reason why we're calling it Israel held hostage. There's tremendous anger, and there's also a lot of concern for the safety and well-being of these hostages.
For any government, you look at the situation of IC-814.
Right.
I think about 180 plus minus hostages taken to Kandahar.
Right.
The entire nation had to bow down.
Right.
The public sentiments. Save our family, save our people.
Right.
You can imagine the sentiments in Israel. So the government will attempt a rescue, and that's why I'm saying it's a nightmare operation for the Shariat matter, for any special force for that matter, to go into a combat zone where there are thousands of terrorists, I won't say militants, terrorists who will not hesitate to kill. So that is the situation.
But isn't this a situation, contingency that Sairat Matkal would train for? These kind of things, that hostages being taken and hidden.
You keep training every day.
Right.
Every special force does it on daily basis. They have various, some of the units are on standby, others are in a longer alert period, some are in training. So this is a daily bread and butter of a special unit to carry out building intervention, to carry out use of explosives, to do detection, how to blow a hole, how to do a clean cut. That goes on. But actually what happens when an actual life situation arises, that life situation will have various dynamics. And I mentioned to you that if I have to go in for a hostage rescue, what are my questions to the intelligence? Where is the target?
Right.
How big is the target? How many doors, windows, entries, basements, whatever? Can I approach the target blindly, means without the people inside being able to notice me? Can I achieve surprise? Are all the hostages together? Or have they been dispersed in a batch of say 10, 20 here, there, everywhere? You may strike one place, there will be other places where the hostages have been moved. It will become your nightmare. So it is a big challenge. Our prayers are with the hostages, and let's hope. Will the Hamas negotiate? Israel has said we are not going to stop the operations. You cannot use the hostages as a bargaining chip. Fine. You release the hostages, we'll consider stopping the operation. But not that you got a hostages, we are not going to stop. Fine. So that is the resolve of the government and the people of Israel. So the nation in such a circumstance, if they now cow down, they for the future will remain cowed down. They cannot.
You see this as being Israel's IC-814 moment. In fact, what you said is very interesting. You drew parallels with our 1999 IC-814 hijacking the aircraft, and where we actually had to give in to the terrorists.
An aircraft has landed in an area which is totally controlled by a hostile force. Not in tens, 20s, and hundreds and thousands. Fine. You cannot land there. You cannot parachute down there. You cannot launch a para-brigade attack because the surprise is lost. Thereafter, they'll just blow that airplane. Fine. So you are in a catch-22 situation. It's a difficult option, difficult operation. Sometimes wonders do happen. You never know.
At this point, I want to, our reporter Neha Khanna has interviewed the families of the hostages in Israel. Let's listen into what they have to say.
Joining me now on News9 Live are two sisters who've been living through a nightmare since last Saturday when those horrific and chilling terror attacks unfolded in Israel. The nightmare is far from over because their loved ones were killed by Hamas terrorists that day, and they have no idea what's happened to their loved ones, where they are, and what condition they're in. I'm joined from Israel by two sisters, as I said, Galit Dan and Hadas Calderon. 5 members of their family have been kidnapped, the youngest being 13 years old and the eldest being 80 years old. Hadas Calderon, if I could start with you. First and foremost, I want to thank both of you for joining us at a very, very difficult time. My heart goes out to you and your families. Hadas, please tell us and our viewers what happened that day and how many members of your family, who all have been kidnapped, and what do we know about them and their condition?
Okay. We live in a peaceful, quiet village just near Gaza. In 6:30 in the morning, they will start bombing us. Bombs. It was really massive bombs. And then we heard terrorists coming. We heard Arab language. Suddenly we understand the terrorists came inside our village, our kibbutz. In half an hour after, we understand they go house by house and kill and murdered and butchered and slaughtered. We had a massacre, pogrom. It was like they didn't have pity, not even for dogs. They killed old people, babies, children, dogs, men, women, family, all family was gone. We are survivor by miracle. Anyone who been survived, it's a miracle. And then now we are 7 days after. The problem is what's happened. We can't go back. But they took a lot of hostage, kidnapped. They just took children, babies, family, and they took them straight to Gaza. They hold them now in cruel hands for 7 days. We have no information, nothing. We don't know. We don't know if they eat. We don't know if they drink. We don't know if they survive. Nobody give us any information. We hear because we want to scream to the world. Shake the sky, shake the world to release the innocent children and ordinary people. This is not a human being. It's like Al-Qaeda, it's like ISIS, it's not, you can't even imagine it. We just here to pray and to begging for the whole world. Help. Anyone who can help in any way, talk to the government, talk to God, talk to anyone you can to release this innocent citizen. They are in a huge danger. Anytime, any minute they still there, it's a crisis. We have to do it and to act. Not tomorrow, not now. Yesterday, we must act. We must release them. We must bring them to our hands. I talk like from my heart as a mom. We are in, I want you and the whole world to go inside and just imagine for a minute your child like hopeless, like been taken like this in a cruel hands, and we don't have any information. We have nobody to talk. We've been a peaceful and a peace mind village. We helped Gaza people. We took them to hospital. We took them. We gave them work. We've been. Our faith was to peace. I still believe in peace. I still believe we have to talk and not to fight. To solve things by talk and to make solutions, not in this cruel, crazy way. We can't make a war on the back of children and ordinary people. What's happened to our world?
It's absolutely heartrending, and our thoughts and prayers are with the families. One can only imagine what they must be going through. The crisis, this hostage crisis, this unfolding nightmare that you mentioned that's on in Israel, and it could well be that IC-814 moment. But there is this thing of wanting to take revenge for what happened, General Datta, with these attacks on the 7th of October, but also this, at the same time, they have to rescue these 150 odd hostages.
Absolutely.
Have you ever been confronted with this situation you've been in the National Security Guard for many years. 5 years you commanded the 51 SAG.
Yeah.
What was the most challenging task for you as 51 SAG commander?
Going down in the history, I will quote you the first. a mixture of both the special group and the NSG. One of our planes hijacked to Pakistan, Dubai, if you remember, in the early 80s, where I think the Khalistani militants had taken the aircraft. Special group was mobilized.
Right.
Special group was airborne, flying behind that aircraft in a civil aircraft.
Right.
Fine. That plane landed in Dubai. We sought permission from the Dubai government to land. They denied permission. We had to come back and land back in Jamnagar.
Okay.
Because we were running low on fuel.
Right.
Fine. Now, had the Dubai government then given us permission to land, we would have immediately carried out a storming of the aircraft and rescued the hostages.
Right.
Finally, they were released by negotiation, and the demand by the Khalistanis were that they want to be sent to the US or Canada.
Right.
So the Dubai government gave them assurance that okay, we will board you on a aircraft going to either US or Canada. It's a long story.
Right.
They were brought back subsequently in a different operation. That was one challenge, live going on. We are in communication with the pilot of the other aircraft. We are in communication with the ATCs. We are in communication with the Dubai ATC. And everybody is waiting, will it happen or will it not happen? Otherwise, situations like hostage and terrorism, people stuck in a target area, civilians, in J&K, in Punjab, in many places, where you had to carry out operation, but you had to first evacuate the civilians out,
Right.
both in J&K and Punjab, and only then you can carry out operation. So it is quite a tricky action. Sometimes the civilians get stuck. They are not hostages,
Right.
but they are stuck. You have to rescue them.
In fact, here I want to bring in, this interview with Lieutenant Colonel Sandeep Sen of the 51 SAG, who carried out the rescue at the Chabad House in Mumbai 26/11. Let's listen into what he has to say.
If you see overall Palestinian and Israelis conflict, it doesn't surprise anyone in the entire world. It is continuing. It is not a thing that which suddenly happens on 26/11 happened suddenly. India generally such action doesn't take place and Bombay is attacked suddenly. So that kind of situation is not there. It is totally different. It is a conflict, ongoing conflict since 1946-47. Since then, the Israel has become a country and Palestinians and they are having a problem. So, but only thing surprising was the scale of attack. That was surprising. That suddenly Hamas has outsmarted the Israeli intelligence. That was surprising. Once the terrorists get inside or go inside, the kind of mayhem they will create, it is not a surprising thing. It will be brutal. It will be hostage situation. It will be killing. No, but for me, it was surprising that the from whole world, there are take inspiration from the security system of Israeli security system. We all vouch for it.
So that was Colonel Sandeep Sen recounting what went on 15 years ago. In fact, watching that, I was reminded of a story that we did recently on the CRPF's quick action team in Jammu and Kashmir, which Aditya Raj Kaul, who covers national security, did for us. You'd like to see the kind of room intervention drills that they're doing, very similar to what the NSG has been practicing for many years. Let's take a look in.
Carry on, sir.
हमें हमेशा अलर्ट रहना होता है।
मतलब 24/7।
बुलेट और बम कहीं से भी आ सकती है।
हमारा मकसद आतंकवाद को जड़ से उखाड़ना। ऐसी परिस्थितियों में डर तो सबको लगता है,
लेकिन अगर हम डर गए
तो टेररिस्ट को कौन डराएगा?
Today, shops are open, there's no shutdown or hartal, and the tricolor is flying high right behind me at the historic clock tower. I'm standing at the Lal Chowk, which was once considered the epicenter of unrest in the Kashmir Valley. This change hasn't been easy. The CRPF's Valley Quick Action Team is now marking a new chapter in the history of Jammu and Kashmir.
I'm Charu Sinha, IPS, IG Srinagar Sector CRPF, and I am the first woman police officer to ever head any sector in the Kashmir Valley in CRPF. In the year 2010, the Valley QAT came into existence. In 2016, it started getting into operations. And by operations, I mean anti-terrorist operations in Srinagar city.
जैसा कि आप जानते हैं कि 2016 वो दौर था जिसे बुरहान वानी का दौर बोला जाता है। टेररिज्म ग्लैमराइज हो रहा था सोशल मीडिया पे। लोग हथियार उठाते थे, हथियार उठा करके उसको सोशल मीडिया पे शेयर करते थे। इस दौर में घाटी ने वो दिन देखे हैं जब बहुत ही गंदे तरीके से लॉ एंड ऑर्डर इश्यूज, पत्थरबाजी, गाड़ियों पे आग लगा देना, ये सब चीज़ें हुआ और इसको साथ के साथ सपोर्ट किया था टेररिज्म ने।
There were so many sporadic incidents happening around the city at that point of time that the local forces which were deployed were not enough.
तो उसके लिए जब शहरी क्षेत्र में अब आपको जब काम करना पड़ता है तो आपको मिनिमम कोलेटरल डैमेज के साथ कार्य करना है। खतरनाक अगर कोई ऑपरेशन होता है जिसमें सबसे ज़्यादा रिस्क है, मोस्ट रिस्की, दैट इज रूम इंटरवेंशन। And this Valley QAT has created an expertise in room intervention.
Whether it is equipment like a corner shotgun or anti-material gun, anything and everything which right now is required, the Valley QAT has it.
So I have with me here Aditya Raj Kaul, our executive editor who covers national security, and Aditya brought us that thrilling story on the CRPF's quick action team that you just saw going about their drills. Aditya, tell us about this experience of yours with the CRPF in Kashmir.
Well, the quick action team is basically, you could say, the commandos of the CRPF. Although the CRPF is deployed all across the Kashmir Valley, it's almost known as the third layer after the J&K police and the Indian Army to provide law and order duties and even rescue operations at times. But in particular in Srinagar, where army doesn't operate, at least in operations, we have the CRPF and the QAT. They're given the best training. We saw the equipment in the story that we did, special story. The equipment comes in from Israel, from Russia, from US, right. The best of the weapons. And they are also trained to deal with the hostage situation. Although such kind of a situation has not really occurred, there have been times when the terrorists in Kashmir have used civilians as human shields. There have been times when there have been attempts to take hostages, but never have they really been successful. So I think the QAT, they are only about 200 in number in in Srinagar, and most of them are volunteers from the CRPF or the chosen ones. And I think they are the best of the best, at least in the CRPF.
Right. Moving on to Gaza, Aditya, what is the terrible news that we're hearing from there? Is it a fact that hostages have been killed there by Hamas?
That's right. I've been tracking this from the IDF perspective and from the Hamas, and I'm on one of the groups of Hamas where they've released a statement, and this statement has come only this afternoon, and it says that 13 hostages that were kept in at least 4 to 5 different locations have been killed, and they say this is in Israeli airstrikes. Right. This is a very obvious thing for them to say. They will obviously not admit to killing them, because you saw yesterday also at night the Hamas spokesperson coming out with an English press conference for about 25 minutes in which he reiterated that our sole target was the IDF and the security forces of Israel and not the civilians. Right. Imagine there are videos, testimonies of witnesses and open evidence of the Hamas Islamist terrorists killing innocent civilians, not in one location but 30 locations.
Right.
But the Hamas is just refuting these claims.
Right.
But there are other hostages as well, as we have discussed, It's not just the Israeli citizens, there are nationalities, other nationalities as well, including Americans, at least 14 in number, who are the hostages of Hamas. So it's going to be a tricky situation, but I think in all likelihood, in the next few hours, we are looking at a ground assault, because the IDF has also released a statement this afternoon asking the civilians in Gaza to move to a particular area and not get caught in this conflict, because the ground assault is coming.
The ground assault is coming, General Datta, and I think your worst fears have just been proved true, that the fact that the civilian human shields have died, and there's no way for us to know whether they were actually executed by Hamas or they died in the bombing.
Absolutely, because the ground phase is going to be the most difficult part of it, and in particularly when it's either a demolished built-up area, there are ruins, there will be adequate places for people to take cover, and if they have the tunneling and they are able to get into the tunnels, they will give a resistance to the Israeli ground assault. They'll definitely use armor and they'll use various other means of neutralizing them, but it is going to be a slow advance. So, in fact, what they've done, you would have seen, which was used by even the NRG during some operations. You cut off the light, you cut off the water, you cut off the electricity, you cut off the food supplies.
Right.
Then they'll have to exit or raise their hands or move to a different location. To save the civilians from the onslaught, that is what the Israelis have requested the UN to move this bulk of people away from the north to the south or toward Egypt, which the UN has said is a very difficult task.
Right.
But then ground operations are going to be slow. They'll be time consuming. They'll have to move and advance with precaution. You cannot go gung-ho in a built-up area.
Right.
You are aware of Russia, Ukraine, Bakhmut?
Yes.
How many months? Russia pulverized the entire city and there was still fighting going on.
Right.
Fine. So it is a difficult operation. While number of major targets have been demolished in the area of interest, but whatever is left in that rubble can be used as cover for anybody to take on another advancing force.
It's a bloody battle, and
Yeah.
that's what we're going to be tracking, that news coming out of Israel, this very tense situation there unfolding, a humanitarian crisis of enormous proportions where there are civilians in the line of fire and of course over 100 hostages held by Hamas. That's all we have this evening. Thank you for joining.